Today on Midlife Conversations, I've got Dr. Dr. Efrat LaMandre. Did I pronounce that right? Efrat LaMandre. I was nervous about it. So
That's perfect. You
yes.
can't pronounce it wrong.
Okay, perfect. And I noticed that people call you Dr. E on social media, and I'm assuming that's why. I've been following your videos for a while. I love how you deep dive so many different topics, and especially in relation to midlife. Like, I love your posts about cancer, about fibromyalgia, about different diagnoses. You're talking about all things that really resonate with our group here. And I really wanted to bring you on because you've got a really unique spin on this idea of things being in our heads and where we're told they are and where they maybe are not, all the things. So thank you so much for being here today.
It's an honor. I appreciate it so much.
So let's go back a little bit. First of all, how did you even get into this field specifically? How did you end up wanting to treat patients? How did this happen?
Okay, this is a really important question because I am guilty of all the things I'm going to tell you never ever to accept. So my first practice is called EG Healthcare. It's primary care practice. So think of your doctor's office. And I practiced everything I learned in school, and I thought I did great. And we have 25,000 patients. And I had people coming over and over saying, "Hey, I don't feel good," or when I ran the labs and everything was fine, and I said, "You're fine. I'll see you next year. Everything's fine." But then it hit home, and my wife got sick. And you will notice that people in the functional medicine, either they themselves have gotten sick, or someone that they love got sick. And in functional medicine, most of us are providers of some sort prior to going to functional. And we hit a wall, and we realized, okay, conventional medicine is really awesome, but it's also super limited.
Yeah.
And so when we hit the wall with my wife's autoimmunity, we started searching. And this was before the internet is what it is now. So we were like really searching. And we discovered functional medicine, and I was convinced it would not work because I learned nothing about nutrition in school.
Isn't
and
that crazy? It's so crazy to me that that's the case, because that's so much of everything. And I hear this over and over again.
Oh my God. Yeah. And so not only that, but for those of you who are listening, who may feel that your nutrition's on point, we thought our nutrition was on point. We, visually thin women, not that the weight matters, but just to draw a picture, athletic, we ate well. We thought we were the pinnacle of health. So the thought that our nutrition could be causing autoimmunity was just insane.
Yeah.
So both on a personal level and a professional level, it made no sense, but we had nothing to lose. So we jumped in. It saved my wife's life, literally. And then I started diving in and bringing it back to my patients until eventually I do this full time.
So if she hadn't gotten sick, you probably would have never gone down this path.
100% I would not have, because everything was fine. I did everything correctly. And all those people who didn't fit the mold, they didn't fit the mold. It never occurred to me that there was another option.
So a lot of people listening right now are really in traditional Western functional medicine. Like that's all they know. That's the whole thing that they understand. That's what they know. For those people, what do you want them to understand that the difference is or can be?
Yes. Okay. So I would say that functional medicine takes Western medicine or conventional medicine to the next level. It's not an either or. So Western medicine, conventional, and I still practice it, and it's wonderful and it's necessary, but it's designed to find a sickness and then to find the treatment. So find the disease and then treatment. If you do not fit the definition or parameters of disease, there's nothing wrong with you. There is no other tools for you in Western medicine. So if you're unwell, let's just take, you're tired all the time, and you checked your anemia, you're fine. We checked your thyroid, you're fine. There's no other cause for fatigue in conventional medicine. Have a nice day, but you are still exhausted. Conventional medicine can no longer help because you don't have a pathology. Functional medicine says, okay, wait, this symptom means something. Maybe we need to dig a little deeper, and it has more tools, different tools, to try to get to the cause of your symptoms before they become a disease.
Wow.
I would say that it's an extension. It's Western medicine done to what it's supposed to be done.
What it feels so frustrating to me sometimes, and I hear this with so many women, is they just take their doctor's initial word for it if they're not practicing that whole functional side. Like, so they say, well, I went to the doctor and they said it's fine, or they said it's in my head, or they said it's just my age, or they said these things, and they just sort of accept that as their truth. And they're missing to me this whole other area.
Yeah. So it's so funny because I think prior to starting, we alluded to my book. The name of my book is called It's Not in Your Head. So what will happen is when you go to the doctor's office or nurse practitioner or PA, you know, everyone's well-meaning and they're showing you in black and white that you're fine. So who are you to question that, right? Who are you? You didn't go to med school. You're a lawyer, you're a teacher, you're your mom. You don't have the tools to question that. So I understand why they're not questioning. They're like, look, everything's normal, everything is in the green. So it's disempowering. So I would say this, you know, and it's hard to question because you're like, well, I know I kind of read it on Google, but you don't want to be that person to come into the doctor's office and really Google research it.
I'm that person. I've got to say, no, I am. They're like, don't look on Google.
I actually don't mind it at all. So what you know, I tell my patients this, like if you are getting a house project done and you have a plumber there, you're not going to ask your plumber to do electric. So if the plumber says, I don't know why your light's not working, you'd be like, okay, cool, just fix my pipes, right? And you would move on. So it's the same thing with a doctor. The doctor's like, I don't know why you're not fatigued. Don't get frustrated. They're amazing people. They went to school. They want to help you, but they have no more tools. And you now need to, instead of saying, okay, I guess you're right, say, you could be like, all right, great. Thanks for all your tools. Let me find someone else that has tools. And I want to caution women in our age group. I'm 51 years old. I think you are as well.
Yep.
I want to caution that if you're walking out of there saying, wow, I really don't feel well, they're saying, right. And if there's any kind of passive aggressive mention that's like, well, what do you expect at your age? Well, maybe you're stressed. Maybe if you just lost some weight, maybe if you exercise more, maybe if you, you know, maybe if you, what do you expect? You're postmenopausal. These are all variations of it's in your head.
Yes. Oh gosh. I'm so glad you just said that because people justify with everything you just said, but to me it's almost gaslighting and just like,
it's unintentional gaslighting because again, there's no malice and these people really think that they've done the best for you. And so without frustration, you know, that's the piece. The piece is not to get frustrated because we're going to need your PCP. Sure. You know, I have patients all over the country now. So we're going to need those PCP because I can't prescribe or anything in your state. So we're going to need them. They need to be part of our team and we can't expect them to go past it. So if they say it's in your head, say thank you so much. And then find functional medicine. But never skip the step of going to your PCP either, because want to rule out the pathology. Yeah.
So this is this comes very near and dear to my heart, like this whole topic, because especially what I went through this year personally, I had with my regular doctor, some high blood sugar, which just felt super out of character for me. Especially with how I eat and everything, and my insulin, my blood sugar, everything was high all of a sudden. So doing the traditional path, went to endocrinologist, you know, the whole path of like, let's go on metformin, blah, blah. I wasn't okay with those answers. Digging deeper, I actually had no issues with my blood sugar. What I had was a massive leaky gut problem and a parasite, which was creating blood sugar. But had I not asked those questions, like what you're talking about, and just said, thank you, and gone deeper, I would have just taken it as, oh, I'm pre-diabetic. Oh, I need to go on metformin. Here's the answer. So to me, this is such an important topic because my story is just one of so many stories I hear of where we just hear this initial thing and it maybe doesn't resonate or sound right. And we are not going deeper enough.
Yeah. And in that respect, it's kind of patient driven. Like I know we really get frustrated with our medical providers, but it's patient driven because there are plenty of women who would have received the diagnosis and said, thanks for the metformin, see you in 3 months. And they would be happy with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're not happy with it, you need to push the envelope. And if that person you're with doesn't have the tools, keep asking. Yeah. Because there are people like me out here. We're ready for you. We're ready to work on it.
I love that. I love it. So let's talk about this whole, especially this hormonal state of transitioning, perimenopause, menopause, maybe postmenopause, and these things are happening. And so many doctors are saying those things that you said. It's your age, just accept it. You know, it's just, you know, this is what happens. Can you speak into that some?
Yes, absolutely. And I also want to speak to, it's your hormones. What do you expect? So of course there are hormonal changes in our age. We can't deny that. But a lot of the symptoms that we have are actually not hormonal, including hot flashes. Like you would think hot flashes must be the case.
Speaking to that. Yeah. Cause I thought that was all hormonal. So what else would be causing that?
Oh my goodness, what you eat. So I'll give you a classic example. You know, classically in our age group, we like to have dinner. We go out for pasta, nice glass of wine. We're really good at our wines at this age. We kind of know, and you know, and then we go to sleep. and then we have hot flashes, and we're sure it's perimenopause, and it's because of the wine that you just had and the carbs that you just had, and you actually just became hypoglycemic at night, and so you're sweating. So before you, and by the way, I'm a huge fan of hormone replacement therapy, but before you go down the hormone road, you really want to kind of drive down and make sure that your symptoms are truly all hormonal, because I will see my patients with hot flashes, we will clean up their nutrition, and their hot flashes go away.
Wow.
That doesn't mean we're not going to do hormone replacement therapy, because
Sure.
there's still your heart and your bones and all that stuff, but it's not necessarily, your hot flash is not necessarily from that. What you eat at dinner is going to fully impact your insomnia, your night sweats, all of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So in fact, I won't take on a patient and do hormone replacement therapy unless we do the work first. There are some people who just not a problem. Let's do the test. That's awesome. But we do the work first, because what I want to do is let's clear everything out and let's see what symptoms are actually left to contend with once we've ruled out nutrition and other causes from it. So if at the end of this, we're 30 days in, we're 60 days in, your nutrition's on point, I'm not saying never have alcohol, but now oh, when alcohol, things like you're in control of it, and then you still have the hot flashes, now is the time for your hormones. So
I love this, because I love what you just shared, because this is the standard. You walk in, you say, I have hot flashes. They say, check, you're 50 years old, check, you're in menopause or perimenopause. Here's your HRT, or here's your bioidentical, or here, whatever. That's not even asking the questions about what you just said.
Yeah. So nutrition, so you have so on the one side, you have people who have symptoms and you're assuming it's hormones, and it may not be. And that's a problem too, because have you addressed their brain fog, and maybe it's nothing to do with them. Maybe they're exposed to mold, and now you're thinking they just need more testosterone. So you have the symptomatic patient that may be getting hormones when they don't need it. And then you have the asymptomatic patient who has absolutely no hot flashes. Everything is fine, but are you just letting them go out into into potentially getting osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease because you're not protecting them with estrogen and progesterone? So there's more to the hormone game on both sides. And just being brushed off in either direction is not a great idea. So I have plenty of women that I prescribe BHRT to, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, who have no symptoms whatsoever, but we're doing it to protect their brain, protect their bones, protect their heart. So going back to that question, just kind of being written off for hormones is a problem, because it's so much more complex than that.
Sure.
And just in general, also saying, oh, you're stressed. Who isn't stressed? I was stressed. Everyone's stressed. Why is it suddenly at 50? It's my stress. Yeah. Right.
I know. It's always the same answer. You're stressed, breathe better, and do yoga. Like I need more than that. What?
Yeah. And the other thing that's really important, I want to empower your listeners, is that if you have adrenal fatigue, especially phase 3 adrenal fatigue, and that could be tested, that really sage advice of if you just exercise, you'll feel better, is actually counterproductive for you. If you're stage 3 adrenal fatigue, you will exercise and you will need to recover for the next 2 days. You will be wiped out. So everyone else is feeling great and energized, and you're like, what the heck just happened to me? I got hit by a bus. And so you'll try again, and you try again, and you're like, wow, I must be lazy. Wow, there's something wrong. Wow, I'm the worst. And all this negative talk, which we do not need any more of as women in society. And so now you're just on top of everything. So if you're phase 3 adrenal fatigue, all these well-meaning people who are trying to get you to the gym are actually worsening your fatigue.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Like, how do you explain adrenal fatigue? Because I've heard so many different things on this. I've heard it's in our heads about adrenal fatigue. That's a big one we hear, is in our heads. And then I didn't know there was different phases of it. So what is that? And how do you even test for adrenal fatigue?
Excellent question. So it is you could test for it in saliva. That's the best way.
Okay.
And it is a full day test. You test between 4 to 6 points through the day, from the moment you wake up, at lunch, after lunch, dinner. And that's an important piece, because if you just go to your doctor, they will do a one-time, once a day cortisol blood test.
Okay.
So you want an all-day saliva test, and it's supposed to be very high during the day and like a gradual decline, getting you into sleep. But how varied
your cortisol, that meaning your cortisol will show up high. Okay.
Your cortisol, yes. Cortisol is your stress hormone, but it's also your wake-up hormone. So your wake-up hormone should be high in the morning, feeling energized, getting stuff done. And then your wake-up hormone should gradually, without any quick declines, go lower and lower, getting you ready for bedtime, where melatonin takes over. kind of like a crescent shape.
Yeah.
How varied you are from that is your phases. Like there's a phase 1, which means you're a little varied, phase 2, which is suboptimal. And the phase 3 adrenal fatigue has nothing in that AM. Their AM and their PM looks the same. They're like flatliners.
Okay.
They never produce enough cortisol. So these people wake up, they get sleep for 12 hours. They're exhausted. They're exhausted all day. They're dragging. Everything that they need to do is exhausting. Now you take someone like that who basically has no gas to get through the day, and you say, hey, come CrossFit with me. The zero reserve that they have, they've just given to this CrossFit class, they come back super depleted. They need to recover. They are not energized from this move. So before we give that advice of, hey, just come join this class with me, this will help you, we really need to know that. And that is really empowering for my patients when they get that result back and they're like, oh my God, I thought I was lazy. My husband, my partner, my friends all thought like, why don't I exercise? This is why. Like there's this moment, and there's tears in these moments where they realize like, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Now, do we need to get to exercise? Sure. But this is someone who maybe will walk around the block for months, and then we'll walk around 2 blocks for months, and we'll maybe and 10 minutes might be too much. And we have to get graded exercise, because if we fatigue them more, right? And so we slowly have to build them up, of course, to deal with other issues that they have. But this adrenal fatigue piece is so important, because that's another thing. Like, again, back to that doctor, well, if you just exercise, lose 5 pounds, you'll be fine. Not so much.
No, and then they go into the self beat up, like you said, about what's wrong with me. I'm not motivated. I can't stay motivated. I don't have any energy. And then it keeps them in this cycle of that. And it's really a huge self beat up right there.
100%. Don't beat yourself up.
You mentioned something earlier, and it just triggered a question for me. You said something about mold, and there's 3 things that I really noticed that traditional medicine does not test enough for. And it seems to be the root of a lot of things: gut health, metals, and mold. Why are these like, yeah. So help with this. Like, why is this not talked about more?
It's not talked about because we don't have any medication for it.
Okay.
And I don't mean this in a conspiratorial
way.
way.
I just really want to understand this, because I feel like this is the root of so many people's things. It comes like with me, it was gut health. I would have never guessed that. And then I learned that you can't heal gut health if you've got metal poisoning, and you can't heal that because it's like it all thrives in this messy terrain. So I'm thinking, like, why on earth are we not checking for these 3 things?
There is no infrastructure around it in conventional medicines. For infrastructure to be around it, we would need to decide which tests are acceptable. Okay. Insurance and Medicare would have to accept these tests. Insurance would have to pay for the test. We would have to come up with some sort of pharmaceutical to manage it, because pharmaceutical ultimately is what gives us the funding for everything. Okay. In healthcare. None of that exists.
Right.
So the treatment for mold is actually a whole bunch of supplements, and
same with gut health, like all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
this is my forever frustration, because I feel like this would help so many people, and we can't. It's like mind boggling, but I guess you're explaining it to me. This will
help so many people. This is my biggest disconnect, because I still work in conventional medicine. I teach nurse practitioners, I teach healthcare, and then I practice functional medicine, and it's as 2 different worlds. And if you don't have resources of functional medicine, it's really hard to access. There's nothing to do. Like the testing is expensive and the supplements are expensive.
And then you get discredited if you're not in traditional medicine too. So it's like, you're like in this perfect hybrid, because I get it. Like if you don't do both, it's like people just discredit.
Yeah, you get discredited. I get discredited anyway, because I'm an NP with a PhD. No matter what, you're going to get discredited for something. So just do what you have to do while you're listening. Don't worry about discrediting. So because I got my PhD, and that's not enough, because I'm not an MD, right? It never ends. And then if I wasn't MD, I wouldn't be an MD specific field.
And if you were an MD, a traditional MD, and you weren't talking about the functional, you get discredited on that side. So yes, you're right. You never win.
So just do what feels right for your body. But mold is really big, because a lot of the symptoms that are attributed to fibromyalgia are really mold. Wow. And so fibromyalgia is a diagnosis of exclusion. And a lot of the women who are listening, who might have been advised some form of it's in your head, may have ultimately been escalated to a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. Now, I want to be clear, the symptoms of fibromyalgia are very much real, but the way you get that diagnosis is after years and years of testing negative for everything else in conventional medicine. So you will have gone to rheumatology, you will have gone to cardiology, went to endocrinology, you will have infectious disease, you will have gone everywhere, and every single one of those tests will be negative, and then you will be given the diagnosis of fibromyalgia. So it is real in the sense that your symptoms are real. They're quantified. There's a whole list of what's defined as that, but it's not an acceptable enough diagnosis. And I got a lot of pushback on this on TikTok. A lot of people were for it, but a lot were against it. It's not acceptable, not because I don't believe it's real, because by accepting that diagnosis, the investigation ends, and it shouldn't end. It's, and in my opinion, it's just, they haven't discovered what it is. Now, I'm not saying every fibromyalgia is mold. Please don't take this out of context, but a lot of it is mold.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the symptoms, the brain fog, the random pains, the POTS, the orthostatic hypotension with movement changes, a lot of it is identical to mold symptoms.
Wow.
But you will not get tested for that in conventional medicine.
Wow.
And
it's fascinating.
It's a very easy test, by the way. It's a urine test.
Okay.
The labs that I like is called real-time labs. I'm not affiliated. You do a urine test, you get the results. And then there's a really cool company called Immunolytics, again, not affiliated. They will send you Petri dishes that you can test in your home to see that, to see where it is, because you want, like, whatever comes up in your urine, you have to find the source in your home or your office. So because you have to
know where it's coming from.
know where it's coming from. And then the treatment, it's not that it's easy, because it takes a really long time, and sometimes the treatment is a tad, can be debilitating if it's not done correctly. It's long, but you can get out of it. You can get out of it. And so fibromyalgia could also be undiagnosed Lyme, because Lyme disease is tested a certain way in conventional medicine. And then there's a lab called IGeneX, which tests it completely differently. It could be leaky gut, which you will never get tested for.
No, unless you really, I had to dig for that one. That was crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Heavy metals, same thing. So there are at least 4 things just mentioned here that will never be tested that are very similar to fibromyalgia.
This is really important, because if I'm hearing you correctly, fibromyalgia is kind of like the lump sum up of what else could be going on. And the reason you're saying it's very real, but what you're saying is if you just settle with that diagnosis, you're never getting to the root. And I kind of feel like that's like a lot of autoimmunes too. A lot of autoimmunes, there's a root causing the autoimmune. And unless if we just take the autoimmune as this is the problem and we don't keep fixing the other things, it can lead to more autoimmunes. I mean, I see it sort of the same way.
In terms of root cause, they're the same way. So like fibromyalgia is not an autoimmune because it is excluded from autoimmune.
Sure.
By definition. But in terms of getting to the root cause, yes, because if you have rheumatoid arthritis, if you have Hashimoto's, your problem is not actually in your joints. Your problem is not actually in your thyroid. Your problem is somewhere else.
Yes.
And it is being expressed in your joints or in your thyroid or psoriasis on your skin. So if, I'll do the skin one because it's easy. If you have psoriasis, you could put cream in all day. The flare-up will go down and it'll come right back up. Why? Because the problem is not a lack of cream. The problem is, why is this erupting in the first place, right? Same thing with thyroid. Of course, I'm going to take medication for it. I'm going to need Synthroid or something like that. But that's not the problem. The problem is, why did we have this attack to begin with? P.S. shortcut, if you have Hashimoto's, you better be off of gluten.
Well, I would say, I'm certainly not a doctor, or I don't have my PhD, but I would say most autoimmunes, you want to be off gluten. I mean, in general, it's just going to keep.
Gluten and dairy.
For sure.
I'm
a celiac, so I've been off gluten for 20 years, but what I did learn, is just how many other things are connected within one autoimmune. Like, just because you have one, if you don't manage that, you'll get others. It can keep triggering.
Sure. So let's just say it's gluten, right? Because there's a whole world of non-celiac gluten sensitivity, NCGS. So if you're non-celiac, but you're gluten sensitive and you keep eating gluten, thyroid might be your first thing, but after that, it's going to come, rheumatoid arthritis or psoriasis, because you've never removed the gluten. Without question, if you don't get to the root cause, this is why you get so many of them.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, and these tests that and there's more, right? But those biggies, Lyme, mold, heavy metals, and leaky gut, they're never coming your way in conventional medicine.
Wow.
Never.
That's so frustrating. But what do you want people to know about that? Because it's easy for me to speak out, but then I understand, I'm having compassion for people that they're like, they can't afford it. They don't have the means to go get some of these tests. Like what should they know, or what can they do?
Yes.
Because I feel sometimes I'm so blessed and grateful. Like I can go access some of this stuff, but there's a lot of people that can't.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and recognizing our privilege in this conversation is important. So the reason I wrote the book, and it's like $20 on Amazon, and I think it's free on Kindle, is because precisely for this. It's precisely for the person who maybe doesn't know where to start and maybe has limited resources. Do I test everything? Should I get Lyme? Should I get mold? Like, what should I do?
Right.
Of course, this is how it goes. Always start with your PCP, take it to the fullest, go to all the specialists that they tell you to do, get all the MRIs, get all the scans, get it all done. Always. Next, you must clean up your nutrition. You must fix your gut first. I'm not saying that everything is because of your gut, but if your gut's a mess, nothing else will work for you.
And by the way, I got to interrupt for a second here, because I mean, here I have a whole fitness nutrition brand, and would have been epitome of health. And I had one of the most severe leaky guts my doctor's ever seen. So just because you think you're eating clean and working out and all the things, there's a lot of reasons we can have leaky guts. So I wanted to throw that out there, because a lot of people just assume they don't. I never would have thought I did.
I'm glad you said that, because again, as I said, my wife and I both nutritionally thought we were on point. And 5 years ago, while I was in the height of this, I still had H. pylori, which I had to take
I have H. pylori too from this.
Yes. So in the height of eating clean and doing everything perfectly and being on every podcast in America, I was diagnosed with H. pylori. So you might be good, but if you're still not feeling optimal, something's off in your diet. And I want to say this, I'm so happy you paused on this before we continue, is that sometimes what is healthy is not healthy for you. I have a patient we worked on for a long time. We made strides, but we kept hitting a wall. And that's when we did food sensitivity testing. And it turns out that for her, avocados was the thing. Yeah, and avocados like a superfood. Who doesn't tell you to eat an avocado? Once we removed avocados from her life, everything changed. So when we say nutrition, even for those of you listening who feel like you're on point, be open-minded. There might be something still in there that's not 100%. So PCB, nutrition. You got to fix your nutrition and get your belly right. Your belly should not be bloated, should not be distended. You should not be running to the bathroom. You should not be constipated. Your belly should be fine.
And by the way, my belly was actually completely fine. My only symptom was the blood sugar issue, but I dug deeper to figure out what was going on. But what you just said about food sensitivities too, I want to ask you about that in a second, because I was that person that didn't really believe in food sensitivity tests. I'm like, whatever, unless you have an actual allergy. I completely poo-pooed it. But when I found out about the leaky gut, I did a KBMO food sensitivity test. That's the one that I did. And what came up for me was 4 foods that I eat all the flipping time. So I took it. It was ginger, salmon, eggs, and whey. And I was like, what? So all 4 came out. But so I wanted to get your thoughts on that whole food sensitivity topic too, because I was that person that turned my nose up to those.
Yeah, so that's how we discovered it with my wife, because at the time she was vegan, and this was before like a lot of these options that we have now. So her entire life was corn and soy, and those were the two top hits that she had to that. So it tends to be foods that you've been eating for a really long time.
Is it because of that? Is it because we've been eating them, or is it just like, what's the reason with that? Or are we craving them because we're
it's chicken egg, like, because if you don't have leaky gut, you would be fine eating that, right?
Okay.
So it's leaky gut and then developing a sensitivity, something you're probably eating all the time. So it's a bit of a chicken, like, but I see this all the time. Not only is it something that you eat all the time, but something that you've classified in your mind as 100% healthy.
Oh yeah, like eggs. I thought about ginger's in everything.
Ginger,
like what?
superfood.
Yeah. Would have never guessed that.
Yeah. So after you do your food, your clean up your nutrition, you now have a plethora of testing to do. And the way I decide which test to do next, and I empower my patients to do the same, is depending on what symptoms are left. So in your case, your issue with sugar was clearly GI related.
Yes.
It made sense to go to food sensitivity next, if not stool testing next.
I did both.
There you go. If after you cleaned it up, what was left was like a constantly swollen right joint, well, then I would start looking at Lyme.
Yes.
If after what you had left was like these brain zaps and still brain fog and fatigue, I had a patient, we cleaned everything up, but the fatigue was insane. Mold. If after everything we clean up, you're still sitting at your boardroom sweating while the AC's on, we're going to go to hormones. You clear out as many symptoms as you can nutritionally, and then see what's left, and then know what to turn to.
So what
And
I've
as far-
learned through all this, and I'm sure your patients are learning this too, is a little bit of an element of patience, because like we're such a quick fix like world, right? You know, like everything's quick, quick, quick. And I know for me, like you go to the doctor, you get through, here's the problem, here's the answer. So I think we've all been trained to do that too. So what you're suggesting and what I've learned too is like it does require some patience and really digging and taking some time with this to get to the root.
if you're not ready to be patient, I won't sign on a patient unless they're ready to work for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I won't do 30, 60, 90-day
Yeah.
max challenges. I'm not your girl. I have no protocol. I have no kit. I have nothing like that. I have a baseline starting point that I kind of sort of start at almost all my patients. And then where we go completely depends on what your body tells us. And not everyone wants that.
Yeah.
I've been approached a million times to offer supplements, like on my TikToks, to be a sponsor. I won't do it because I am concerned that someone out there might say, oh, take probiotics, let me take it.
Oh, wow.
And not address the issues. Because and I could probably make a lot more money if I let go of my high principles.
No, but I appreciate that about you. You're really saying like, it's not a one size fits all, and you don't want to give false hope on that.
And it's not a supplement game. Like supplements are important. Of course, I do sell some supplements. Of course, but it's not the game. The game, that's 10% of the game. Like if you were still eating whey and ginger, I can give you probiotics and digestive enzymes until the cows come home.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
No.
So if we remove that and then we add the supplements, yeah, we're doing it. So so it's hard, right? Because that's the other thing that healthcare healthcare got us. Like, I have a 5-minute conversation with my doc. He writes me 5 prescriptions. Everything goes away. If it doesn't go away, something's wrong. So that's another layer. The patience is a really big deal to be able to be like, this is not working. Okay, awesome. That just means this wasn't the thing. Let's go to this thing. And it does take time.
Doctor, I left
to get messed up. It's going to take you 4 years to get unmessed up.
I left my entire business of fat loss. I mean, that's what my best-selling books were on. I mean, this is what I did for years, was I taught fat loss, and I still stand by what I taught, but I literally left it because navigating what I'm navigating in midlife, it's changed my perspective on things. And it's opened up this whole world of there's more to it than just following this regimen. There's more to it. So I see all that. And I felt I personally was not the best person to represent it anymore, because I see this whole world of other topics like gut health, like what you do, like all of these things are so important, and in fat loss alone is not addressing that. So to me, I appreciate what you just said, because I have navigated that same world, and I want to be a voice for all women in general dealing with midlife. And I don't think there's just one method. There's just not. There's a lot there.
And I'm glad you brought up fat loss in general, because I have plenty of thin women who are not well, and I have plenty of heavy women that after we fix nutrition, they may not be at whatever weight they have in mind, but they're feeling fantastic.
Yeah.
And so your symptoms are also not necessarily connected to your weight. That's the other thing. Like, hey, just lose weight. I promise you that if you just lose weight eating, Weight Watchers brownies all day long, you still won't feel better.
Right. That's true. That's true. Okay. I have a question that just came to me because you brought this up, and it's definitely on the controversial side, but I've got to ask it because I'm so curious your thoughts on it. I've got to ask about the semaglutide, or the weight loss. Okay. Can you help? Because tell me about this. All of a sudden, this is like the trendy thing. Everyone's doing it. To me, it scares me. Like, it's manipulating your insulin. What's the rebound effect? So can you share your thoughts on this?
I cannot stand them.
Okay, tell us why.
And in my practice, I personally will not prescribe them. I will refer to my colleagues who are fine with it. Because
people are passionate about this. That's why I want to understand it.
Because we're going back to the conversation, because there's 2 things. First, this is not a weight loss conversation. Health is not a weight loss conversation. Yes, of course, I want to help you get to whatever your goal weight is. But like I said, if I get you to your goal weight and you're still eating brownies every day, I've done nothing for your health. I've done nothing for you. So it is not, in my world, health is not, it's not a numbers game. It's not a scale game.
Sure.
So you're taking these medications, you're losing your 10 pounds. What have you done for your health? Just right there, because you haven't really changed your relationship with food or started using food as medicine and removing the things that are irritating and putting in the good things, right? So that's number one. So one is that it's not a weight conversation for me. And then number 2, in order to win at this weight game, you have introduced a lot of chemicals. These chemicals are not benign. And you are like a classic victim of rebranding. Like these pharmaceutical companies get licensing for X amount of years for, let's just say, type 2 diabetes. When they're about to lose the licensing, they rebrand a new usage for it. And now they could stay longer without offering generic. And you're just part of that experiment.
Wow. So what was this for before? I didn't know
Diabetes.
this. Oh, so, okay. So got it. So that's why. So it was originally only for diabetes and now they're just rebranding it for this because we're like, okay,
Now
what's
we
the next
have this
thing?
new, it's not off
Got
label
it.
anymore. Now, like
Okay.
it used to be off label, like on the down low, your endocrinologist would be like,
Yes.
take this.
Like sneaky.
Now it's like approved.
Yeah.
for
I feel like it started in the biohacking world a little bit. Like it started with the peptide, you know, like everyone's like this, and then all of a sudden it's like this whole big talked about thing. Like everyone's getting it as, cause I heard of it, when I first heard of it, it was semaglutide is what people were calling it. And now it's a whole prescription name. So it's like, I've seen this evolution there.
Yeah, I mean, it is, it's prescriptive.
And what happens? Okay. What happens when someone's not
when you
diabetic
come
and they
out?
take it? Like what happens to their body?
Not good things.
Okay. That's what I would wonder. Like
Yeah,
what happens when you stop
and then
taking
what happens when you come off of it? Because you've not changed your relationship with food. I really don't see anything good about taking chemicals to, you know, but I always say that. And then I always say, but I'm also not in your shoes. And some people are just so desperate not to be heavy. And it's just all encompassing and it's all consuming for them. And if that is what they need, so their goal might not be health. Their goal might be like, I don't care what it costs me. I need weight loss. And if that is what they need, you know, I would need to create room for that also. But it's not a health conversation. Then that number situation for you is just so important that you almost doesn't matter to you what the repercussions are, right? Sort of like, so like gastric sleeve, like people who get to that point. Listen, I clear people for that surgery all the time. Do I necessarily love it? No, but for the patient who's like, I am so utterly desperate, I'm willing to cut myself open for this.
Sense.
Right. So I created, so that is their space and that is what matters to them. But here in the functional medicine world, we're talking about autoimmunity and joints and longevity and brain. So it's not really a weight conversation. So there really is no room for that here.
That makes sense to me. Yeah. I guess that's where I've sort of landed on it is my friends, they're just trying to lose 5 or 10 pounds. I think they're crazy. Like, why are you doing that? You're killing your health. And then, but then like you said, I can appreciate somebody that's got 100+ pounds to lose and they're navigating heart problem. You know, they've got all kinds of other things. So it's kind of like, what's the lesser evil at this point? Like, I've not been in their shoes. So again, it is a different situation, but I think I personally have landed on that. If you're just doing this to lose 5 or 10 pounds to be super, like that's to me is crazy. Like you're really messing with biology and your health and like just all of it. It's just really scary to me. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's ultimately always every decision you make is risk reward. So if you're 100 pounds over and you've been 5-10 years and you're already, like you said, heart is an issue, diabetes is an issue, blood pressure is an issue, then the risk reward of taking this medication to get you off of 3 medications and out of morbidly obesity or, you know, get you.
Yes.
The risk reward is this way. But like you said, for someone who has 5-10 pounds, the risk reward is in the other direction and it doesn't make sense.
Totally. Okay, tell us about your book because you've got a book out. It's not in your head. And I feel like everyone needs to go get this now, especially after listening to you today. What made you tell us what made you write this book? I mean, is it mostly because of what you experienced with your wife? What was the thing? Like, what do you want people to know? Why do you want them to go get this?
I did it because I wanted to give people like a framework because there's so many tests out there. What do I do first? And so I really I kind of give a very kind of macro overview of what the options are, where to start, what to do next, and when to consider testing, because I have so many people come to me with like whole files of all the tests that they did when they haven't really figured out what to do. Or like we said, those who are like, well, there's only so much money I can spend. Where do I go? Where should I spend it on? So I did it for that, to create a bit of a roadmap. To let people know where to start. And then of course there's a little information about how to work with me, but ultimately it wasn't for that. It's just, that's because the people insisted I write that. And I actually hate that chapter in the book.
Really?
Yeah, because I wanted to be a standalone help you book without whether or not you come to work with me or not.
Yeah, but people are going to want to work with you when they read it. And so you have to, otherwise they're going to, then you leave them hanging and they're like, well, how do I find you? So I think it's good that you included that too. So if you're not doing this now, make sure you follow her on TikTok and on Instagram. TikTok is super informative. I mean, I think you put a lot of the similar ones on Instagram, but it's the New Method, right? That's your screen name on there. The New Method, and KNEW.
Yes, spelled
Yes,
with a K, because
the
you always
new.
there's a better way.
I love it. I love it. Really informative, bite-sized chunk videos. That's how I found you originally, which is amazing. And then Dave, make sure you get her book. Where can they get the book? Where do you want them to go to get it?
Amazon Kindle.
Okay. Amazon and Kindle. All right. Go there. No special website. You can just find it on Amazon or Kindle. Thank you so much for taking the time today. This is great. I can't wait to dive more into this book. I love your videos, and thank you so much for sharing today.
Thank you. It was an honor to be here.